Hey everyone, my name is Rahat. I hope you all are doing well. I am the host of the video series Mainframe Voices. As the name suggests, we are creating a video series where we gather different perspectives of experts on mainframe technology and mainframe modernization. Our goal is to highlight the importance and future of mainframe in today's technology landscape. In this episode of Mainframe Voices, we take a closer look at the word mainframe, evokes in the mind of those deeply connected to this technology. From its historical significance to its enduring presence in critical industries, the term mainframe carries a range of associations and meanings. Our experts will share their thoughts and reflections, providing insights into why mainframes continue to hold a vital piece in the world of technology. Let's explore the unique perspective and deep connections that define the essence of mainframes.
I mean, what comes to my mind is actually what other people are thinking. It's usually that mainframes are old machines and old code and things that's very hard and complex to understand. Nothing like the new modern cloud world. But what I actually know about mainframes is that people are under this misconception. They have reached the end of life, and actually, mainframes as a machine, it's a computer machine first and foremost. Very powerful hardware with loads of capabilities that keeps innovating. And like all tools in technology, mainframes do serve a purpose and have right use case. And when they are used on the right use case, they are actually very powerful. And I don't think the technology landscape is just doing one thing, whether that's data centers, cloud with mainframes, without mainframes, with serverless, with containers. All these technologies were created to solve specific use cases, and when you use it the right manner, they will excel. And same is true for mainframes.
I think that the thing that pops into my mind is that now that I know what I know, right, what I've learned over the last 10 years, is the mainframe is at the core of everything, right? It's at the core of our global economy, whether it's healthcare or banking or insurance or airlines or manufacturing, wherever it is. It's really at the core. It's there. It's quietly doing its job that most people around us in our day-to-day lives actually don't even realize it's there. But it's like the silent giant in the background, right? It's running everything. If you ran around and unplugged all the mainframes out there, the global economy would crash. It's the powerhouse. It's the quiet powerhouse in the background.
Scalability, reliability. Then in the second order, it's gonna be securability. Why stability and reliability? From what I saw in the mainframe world, it's like 6 nines is kind of where the reliability for mainframe world starts. Unlike in the distributed, where if you get 6 nines, it's already quite an achievement. And as for the securability, I think that lots of the things around the ZOS platform makes it very secure, but very secure potentially. It depends on how you behave on it. But if you want to, you can really make it so secure that it's very difficult to get to it. Though some companies don't.
Comes to my mind as a mainframer is like the critical thing. So normally, what comes to my mind is like those nights where there's a problem in the bank and there's an event that you need to be a support at night. So that's what comes to my mind if I'm a mainframer. Because it's like a routine in a bank, like where there's a critical issue that it needs to be fixed. We need to be there immediately, and you need to work while the vice president of the company is like behind you and trying to fix it. So that's how I think about mainframe as a mainframer. Like I feel so important that my job is very critical because it affects the whole company, especially with bank. If I'm not a mainframer, if I'm, let's say, a new com sci graduate and stuff, and if I hear mainframe, of course I would think like this is an old technology, and I learned when I attended GSE that they use COBOL to put the astronauts to the moon. So when I think about mainframe, it's really old, and it's something that, do I want to be part of this technology or not. Like you kind of question those kinds of things because as a new engineer, as a new graduate, you wanted those shiny things. You wanted those like things that you could use to create games or to do automation, to look cool and stuff. So yeah, that's what I think about mainframe.
So the first thing that comes to my mind when people ask me about mainframe, usually, and I gave a talk about this recently at a conference in London, usually people think of mainframes as being old. If you Google for the word mainframe, you probably see images of black and white pictures of people wearing ties, suits wearing ties, often men. It's not very well represented in terms of gender diversity. Black and white tape drives. I suppose the thing that mostly comes to mind is people think it's old, and sometimes people think it's expensive. Those aren't true, but those are the first things that come to mind. For me, when I think of mainframe, it's an interesting word because the word mainframe is dated from the fact that you have this mainframe. It's very much a physical description of a machine. You have you buy it and it's a bit like, you don't buy something that you slide into an existing server rack. It comes with the entire rack and it comes with walls and everything, and it's all sort of liquid cooled. So you buy this complete thing. It's about as big as a sort of wardrobe. That's not even true anymore because right now you can buy a mainframe or what's called IBM Z16 actually as a rack mounted model. So you can buy it in a rack and put it in an existing frame. So the word mainframe is already, it doesn't exist. And also the word mainframe is used a lot of the time. You see mainframe being used in movies. I see, and when they're talking in movies about like hacking the mainframe, they're talking about, getting in something that's very secure and central. It's kind of nucleus of an organization. It's more like, we're breaking into a vault. So they understand it's something secure, but my world is all really based around what's called an IBM Z technology, which is only one particular incarnation of a mainframe.
About the experience I had at GSE UK. So GuideShare Europe is a conference that, and they're a user group around Europe. And I went to my first conference there last year in November, and I look around the kind of bullpen in a conference where you have all the vendor stands. Right at the back, you had the big IBM stand with the Lego mainframe. You had the Plex mainframe which is like Perspex screen covering all of the innards of the mainframe with the chips and everything. And then you had a Broadcom stand with a racing car. And, you'd kind of look around the room and it's absolutely packed with everyone from students to people like me that are kind of in their 20s, 30s, all the way up into the really kind of mature end of the scale that had been in mainframe for a long time. And for me, that scene kind of encapsulates the mainframe. I think there's a perception that a lot of the people are close to retirement or in kind of that latter stage of their career. But GSE UK gave me the feeling that I wasn't on my own, and there are a lot of people that are like me. We did a big picture, which I think is on LinkedIn, where all of the women that were at the conference were kind of got around the mainframe and took a picture together, and we couldn't get all of us in the photo. So for me, I think that feeling of community and coming together for the common purpose is what the word mainframe means to me.
Another great question. I recently had to answer that in front of an audience. I was giving a guest lecture in Cardiff University Computer Science Department, and I was introducing what mainframe was. And so the way I approached it was I asked, rather than answering the question, I asked another question, which was, how many of you have used a mobile phone or a credit card to pay for goods, whether it's online or in a shop? Everybody's hands went up. Said, okay, do you understand what went on during that financial transaction between you tapping your card against the card reader in the shop or putting your credit card details online to you walking away with the product that you've just bought? And I said, that's what a mainframe does. The mainframe is used by huge amount of banks, financial organizations, insurance companies, retail stores across the world. And it's the reliability, the speed, the performance, and the accuracy of the transfer of data and the processing of that financial data, which makes the world go round, and it all runs on a mainframe.
So, in the first instance, when someone says mainframe, I think of a big and powerful computer used by large organizations for critical applications, massive data processing, and transaction processing. So, this association comes from their historical and ongoing use case, like in the sectors like BFSIs, governments, and enterprise IT, where reliability, security, and scalability are paramount. Mainframes are known for their ability to handle vast amount of data and support thousands of users simultaneously, making them essential for high-stake environments.
I tell them that you can use mainframes for one of the most secure environments, and where you can run many data in parallel, because they are so big, and you can run many thousands of VMs on such a system. And then you can parallelize the data, so you can use it for bank transactions, for many users, many thousand users are adding data in parallel to such systems. Therefore, many banks, insurances, and online shops are using that in the background. Also, the main goal that you can use it there.
The first thing that comes to mind is stability. The mainframe is going to be there, and it doesn't require, sure, there are people who administer it and manage it and all that stuff, but it doesn't require constant poking and prodding to keep it up and running. I mean, I've been at organizations where it hasn't been IPL'd in over a year, and the system keeps humming. It's stable. It works. And try doing that with any other type of computing device. So you gotta shut it down. You gotta free it up. The mainframe, it just keeps chugging along. So stability, reliability.
Explaining the mainframe to somebody, yeah, it's funny. Occasionally you'll mention mainframe and people will look at you and go, do they still have those? And I usually throw some statistics their way, and I say 90, I think it's 90 plus, so about 92% of the world's financial transactions run through mainframe. So it's the center of the business world, the way we live now, for banking, for your insurance, for booking your airline tickets, for all of those sorts of things run through mainframes. And I say I think it's 86% of the world's business data still sits on mainframes as well. So it's the core of the business world is still the mainframe, and they usually take a step back and say, oh, wow, I didn't realize that mainframes were so important, but that usually wows them. I've found that if you start telling them how many transactions per second it can do and all of these sorts of things, they just get lost in those numbers. But if you tell them how it impacts their everyday life, they sort of understand then.
General, when people are asking me, they're usually thinking of old machines, which is unfortunate. And so generally, I remind them that it is actually the most modern hardware that exists. It's the Telum processor. It's been designed to be optimized as a transaction processing system to allow you to do machine learning within transactions. And as I say, it runs the world. The world's economy depends on Z today, with all of banking, insurance, airlines, and every time there's an airline problem or a problem, I always say it's not the Z part that went down. It's that front end system that they're trying to connect to. And so it's really important to recognize the value it brings, as well as the fact that it's actually a very modern system.
They run the world. That's what I think about mainframe. You shut them down today, this entire world will come to a screeching halt. There is all major organizations in this world, they run mainframe. They are very secure. They can handle massive volume of transactions. And when I said my initial project was on mainframe, I worked on DB2, that's a database in mainframe. And in subsequent projects, I had access to work on some open system databases. And the very first thing I noticed was the performance. What mainframe can handle with no special attention. All other databases, we need to be extremely careful. We have to fine tune queries and processes to make sure that those databases can handle that kind of volume. So mainframe, they run the world even today.
The first thing that comes to my mind is literally the very first thing is that it's a word that I think is thrown around when people talk about technology, for example, in films or media, right? Like people be like, oh, I'm hacking into the mainframe, or I'm doing this on the mainframe in films or TV, for example, when they probably aren't. Obviously it's not real, but like they've probably just plucked that word out because it sounds technical, and I think it's giving this impression that like no one really knows what that actually means. What is a mainframe, and when you say it's actually a real thing, I think that it can come as a surprise to some people, because as I say, I think it's just this word that's thrown around without actually knowing what the meaning of it is. So the first thing that comes to mind is I think it's not very understood. It's that the word is thrown around, and people don't really know what that means sometimes.
Yeah, it's still kind of fresh in my mind from when IBM reached out, and when they first asked me, I'm like, I don't even know what a mainframe is. And I actually had lunch with a friend of mine in San Francisco while I was interviewing for the job, and he's like, do they have hard drives? And we're just like trying to think of like what they have inside that because we really just didn't know. And I kind of had this vague notion that there were a lot of them still out there and that they were, powering certain chunks of the economy, but I didn't know very much. So it was definitely a surprise to really dig into the hardware and learn just how powerful they are, how innovative they are. IBM tends to release a new one about every 2 years, and all the innovation and work that goes into that has been phenomenal. Like the last chip, the IBM Telum chip that came out in it, it's got an AI accelerator in it. So like, and of course, since that's hardware, that would have been planned about 5 years ago. So I think coming into it, I really just didn't know about them. And now being in the thick of it, it's been a really astonishing journey.